Welcome back to another edition of Dogging It. I'm Molina Mike, and I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. As you can see, I'm not in my usual, home base. I'm actually out of Illinois right now, as many of you know. I'm here at Junior Nationals, and it's been an exciting few days. And but the other stuff out within the industry is never going to stop, at least for me. And I'm real excited to have this guest on. I've been trying to get it going with them for a few days. He's a legend, and I first met Jay a few years back at the Expo in Vegas, and I've told the story a couple times. But um, he's walking into the Rio where we were at, and he looks over and he says, "Mike," and I was like, "How the hell do you know who I am, man?" And I was like, "You're Jay Helfert," and so we got to hang out for a little bit. He did some commentary when Joey and I were streaming. It was a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to bring him in. He's out of the Philippines right now. He'll actually be doing some of the commentary for the Sharks event that's starting right now, you guys. But let me bring him on in. I don't know that it needs any kind of introduction, but nevertheless, I'll introduce you either way. Jay Helfert. Jay, how are you, sir?
Mike, it's really great to hear from you, buddy.
No, it's the pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. Where are you at, man? You're out of the Philippines right now, or are you back in
Yeah,
California?
we have a second home here. You probably know my wife is Filipina. We have
Right.
a home in Pampanga, which is a province about 50 miles outside of Manila.
How's the weather these days, man? How's life out there?
Well, it's summertime here, but the interesting thing is that it's not as hot and humid here it is as it is in the U.S. right now.
I wouldn't have guessed that, Jay. I would have lost money betting the other way.
Well, normally that would be the case, but you're having a terrible heat wave across the country. I know that. And here, it's been kind of a mild summer with high temperatures like in the high 80s and maybe humidity in the 60s. So it's warm, but it's not oppressive. It's not like a Vegas heat or a Palm Springs heat.
Oh, don't remind me of that. But did I just see where you were celebrating your birthday out there, Jay?
Yes, my wife surprised me. I knew she was planning a party for all her friends, but it turned out to be a surprise birthday party for me. And there was like 50 people there. It, you know, here I am, a senior citizen, and I never had birthday parties like this in my life. I'm used to having birthday parties with me and one or two other people.
People got a lot of love for you, Jay, all over the world, man.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It's unbelievable.
What's the food like, man? What was the dinner for your birthday like?
every Listen, in the Philippines,
They know how to cook, Jay. I know that.
they
Yeah,
it was like a huge buffet.
yeah.
You name it, they had it, including a lot of American style food like buffalo wings and lamb chops and stuff like that.
Back when I was around 18, I dated a Filipino, and it was that style, and it was a lot of karaoke, if I remember right.
Oh
So,
yeah, there's
yeah,
karaoke. That night there was karaoke too,
yeah.
and drinking.
Hey, dude,
I
when in
had
Rome, man.
I had my single glass of wine. That's all I can drink.
Well, listen, you sound like you're doing wonderful. Happy belated birthday! But we're here to talk some pool, Jay, and
Okay.
this is it's a you're a perfect time. You're in the perfect place at a perfect time because the reason why I invited you on was because I seen a Facebook post where you're going to be doing some commentary for the upcoming Sharks event, which actually starts today, right now.
It started at 9 o'clock this morning here, which is 9 o'clock p.m. On the East Coast of the United
Right.
States, 6 o'clock on the West Coast.
Tell me about the
And
pool
you can
culture out
watch
there,
it,
Jay.
it's free.
YouTube.
SharksBilliardLeague.com.
Sharksbearsleague.com. I know I just shared a YouTube link where I think they were
Good.
starting on there as well, which is fantastic. So fans all over the world can go and see. But talk to me about the pool culture, Jay, because you've been in the fabric of pool in the U.S. for so long, but you got a lot of roots in the Philippines as well. Tell me about some of these names that we're seeing on there that maybe some of the American fans may not know of.
Well, first of all, they got a full field of 128 players, and every Filipino player that we've heard of is there. Carlo, Lee Van Dennis, Jeff DeLuna, um, even Ronnie Alcano, Warren Kiemko. They're all playing. Plus, maybe 80 or 90 other Filipino players, some not so well known, like well, we know James Aranis and Johan Chua because they
Right.
just won the World Team Billiards. Of course, they're here, but there's a guy. What's his name? I want to say Koi Koi from down in southern Philippines, Villarete. You will see him play at some time, but they're probably rather than try to give you all these names, you will see, if you watch some of these matches, you will see Filipino players that you've never heard of because they've never been to the States. Many of them have never been out of the Philippines who play basically the same speed as players like Chua and Aranis. They're
That's
that
what
good.
That's what I was going to ask you, Jay. Like, give me a comparison here. If you're talking about, let's say, like a U.S. Open where you're filling it up with, like, let's say 80 or 90 Americans that you never heard of, give me that perspective or that comparison when it comes to 80 or 90 Filipinos that you've never heard of out there.
Well, if I took 80 of these guys that you never heard of and brought them to the U.S. Open,
You'd be a rich
40
man.
of them would probably finish in the top 64.
That's a bold statement, and you're being serious.
Listen, these are 700 plus players. I've watched them play. These are guys that are now spotting people. They give spots to people like Efren and Bustamante, and some of them play Dennis and Lee Van even. I'm talking about even in long races, and some of them get a small handicap. Maybe in a race to 25, they get 2 or 3 games on the wire. So you can fit most people out there can figure out how strong they play. There's at least 50 Filipino players that have never been to the States that if they came there, they would definitely be able to win regional tournaments.
What are some of the, I don't want to say hardships, but maybe some of the reasons why we haven't seen some of these guys come over? Is it just financials, Jay, more than anything?
No, it's visa issues more than anything. Number one, they got to be able to get a visa, which is not when you're. It's not like coming from the U.S. where you can go almost anywhere in the world. In the Philippines, basically, the places you can travel to are in Southeast Asia. They can go to Thailand. They can go to Taipei. They can go to Japan. But coming east to the U.S., Canada, and going west to Europe is very difficult for them to get a visa. They have to, first of all, make a name for themselves. They're going to have to win something. They're going to have to win like this tournament. If one of these unknown players wins this tournament, he's going to be able to get a visa and probably go anywhere he wants. And the other issue, of course, is a financial issue.
Right.
Most of these guys come from very poor surroundings, and they have to find a sponsor. And even to play in a tournament like this, half these guys probably have somebody sponsoring them, paying for their hotel, and they're traveling locally. They're traveling in the Philippines, where it isn't so expensive to travel around.
Do you think there's some players out there that can be like a Dennis or a Carlo? When I say that, I mean like highly decorated if given the opportunity, Jay.
Oh, there are and there will be. Look, a few years ago, we didn't know Roberto Gomez. We didn't know Jeff DeLuna. We didn't know Johan Chua. I knew them, but because I was here so many times, we didn't know Chua. We didn't know Aranis. Okay? Right. But look what happened. And I would say there's a couple dozen more players that speed right now.
A couple of dozen, Jay. A couple of dozen. Is that what you're saying? A couple of dozen players in that range.
Right now. And probably you see in the Philippines, young people, young men particularly, and young women aspire to be professional billiard players, just like in the United States they aspire to play tennis or golf. Because for them, the opportunity to win $50,000 or $100,000 is a fortune. It's
right.
And they come from families where they have very little. It's why sometimes, particularly in tennis, you see guys from Iron Curtain countries, okay, that are very successful in tennis because they work so hard. It's their only hope.
Right.
And they make it. They get into the top 100 and they make $1 million a year or $500,000 a year. In pool over here, it's the same way. If you can make it to where you can travel around the world and win $100,000 in a year, that's like $1 million here.
I'm super excited to see the names that I have heard of, to see the names that I haven't heard of. But tell me more about Sharks, Jay. Tell me what they've done to the pool culture out there in the Philippines, where it's already been well established for decades, where it's already fierce competition. How have they changed the game and made it, more opportunity for some of these more unknown players and even the more known players?
Well, they've popped in the last couple of years. They've popularized challenge matches over here. There were challenge matches before, but they weren't being streamed, and there wasn't much money involved. Now, since Sharks has been doing it, um, they're bigger money matches. They're playing for typically a few 100,000 pesos, which is $5,000 to $10,000, which is a good bet. Even in the
Yeah,
U.S., that's a pretty good bet. And they're streaming it worldwide. So there's been actually pool in the Philippines went through a doldrums. Yeah, they haven't had a major event here for 8 or 9 years, and they
right,
went through a doldrums. We used to have World 10 Ball Championship here, World 9 Ball Championship,
right.
World Team Billiards. They were all played in the Philippines because I was coming over here and doing commentary, and then it stopped. They lost sponsorship. Well, that's the big thing. They lost sponsorship, and they quit having these events. This is the biggest pool tournament in the Philippines in at least 8 or 9 years.
Do,
But thanks to Manny Pacquiao and the events he was putting on, and Sharks and a couple others, pool has come back strong. Now you can see big challenge matches in the Philippines every day, both on Sharks and on other streaming channels. And one thing I want to point out, every streaming match you see, it's real money they're playing for. There's no fake matches. There's no matches where they're splitting up stream money or anything like that. Every match you see here, it's the real deal.
It's funny you bring up Pac-Man, because I was going to ask you about that, because those were the big tournaments that I remember seeing over so many years, right? Was Manny's events where he'd put on, obviously playing 10 ball. But is this Sharks type event, given the way that they distribute it, whether on YouTube or through their Facebook, or whether online, is it different as far as the opportunities that these players are going to get because of the masses that they're reaching right now with how they're streaming?
Well, the most important thing, this is part of Matchroom's Nine Bowl Tour. It's an event on their Asian Nine Bowl Tour, so they get ranking points, and that's very important. If you want to get invited to other events, you need. That's why you see. Listen, there's at least 30 foreign players here. Big names like all three Co brothers are here. Two of the top other Chinese guys, Chang Zhonglun and Chang Chonglin. They're here. A couple players from mainland China. Fedor Gorst is here. He's playing in this event. Um, Oi from Japan. I'm trying to think of all the players.
If
Hang
if
on just a
you
second.
Sure,
I
no
need you
problem, Jay.
to play, guys. All right.
If you were gonna take, let's say if I gave you 15, Vogue names in pool, right? The Changs and the Ko's, and let's say even James and Chua. If I were to give you, 15 guys, Dennis,
Yeah.
Carlo versus the field, who's Tupe J laying his money on?
It's about even money right there. And I'm going to tell you, Mike, all these top players I said are in danger of being upset by somebody you never heard of.
You told me that last
Remember,
night,
they're
Jay, and
playing races to seven.
that's weighted coming from you. Because you got a lot of credibility in this industry, Jay. You've seen top players over decades. And you're
It's going to
saying that
happen.
that's the
It's going
talent
to
of
happen,
players
Mike.
who are
There's going to
unknown
be
over
lots
there.
of upsets here. And
I,
I wouldn't be surprised if a few, two or three unknown players show up in the last eight. Don't be surprised
I wouldn't be
if
either.
they're pure Filipinos.
No, I'm 100% with you. I'm on board, and I thought that, because I see little names that I've seen on the radar here or there, right, and then unknown names, and then I talk to my buddies who are Filipino, and they're whispering in my ear, telling me, some guys who are undercover monsters, maybe not more vogue names right now, but they can be. Much the same as to what you're saying. This is a great event, but it's not a traditional 9-ball ranking event in the sense of you're playing winner break. It's a slight twist. Am I understanding
Yeah.
that right? It's race to 7, alternate break.
Yeah, it needs to be alternate break. And that's good. That's like a Mosconi Cup format. And actually, it's a little bit longer race. It's a race to 7 and not 5. I believe that in the knockout stage, they go to a race to 9.
So right now they're playing the race to 7 alternate break, and then when they get down to what is it, 64 or 32, Jay? When we're going to single
I'm not,
elimination.
I'm not 100% sure. I haven't been given the answer. It's either 64 or 32. It's the knockout stage. Um, but yeah, what I was going to add to what I said, Mike, is that remember, there's probably 40 named players in this field.
Right.
Names that you would recognize if you see the list. That
Sure.
means there's a good 80 that you don't know. So the unknowns have the knowns outweighed 2-1. And that's why I say some of these unknowns are going to be there come the final 8 and the final 16. You mark my words.
Well, we saw it whenever Federer went over there and played in his challenge matches. I think one of his first ones was against Kingpin. I'm probably butchering the name, but it's Baseth Mosabaeth or something
Yeah,
along those lines. And
yeah.
he was saying when he went after the match and he ended up losing, was that I really didn't know this guy, but he was just an absolute monster.
Yeah.
He kind of Federer kind of broke down his game a little bit in certain aspects and just saying like he did everything really well, and I had no idea who the guy was coming over here.
Well, welcome to the Philippines.
That's that's the way to get a hug, right? Let's talk a little
Listen,
bit.
I don't care who you are. You can be Gorst or Filler or anybody for that matter. If you come to the Philippines and you start gambling with his guys, you're going to start getting beat on. You're going to get worn down. It's like it used to be that way in the United States. There could be a top young player come along, and when he goes somewhere to like New York where you have a dozen great players, you might beat a couple of them, but after a while they'll wear you down because they won't stop coming at you one after another. And you just aren't going to beat all these guys.
Is it a mix of talent plus? Listen, they're trying to feed themselves. They're hungry. They got a lot of heart. They're gonna fight for every ball.
It's a mixture of heart and sheer determination.
Yeah,
They know it's their way out of the jungle. You understand?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
And for a lot of them,
I mean,
that's reality.
a lot of these guys come from where they had nothing. I mean,
Right.
they were looking for their next meal somewhere,
Right.
living on rice. That's I'm in a country where 2/3 of the country lives, in pretty much what we would call a poverty level. Okay,
Right.
so I mean they all survive. It's a wonderful country because even as poor as many people are, there's so much kindness and consideration here, and it's just it's a very civil environment overall.
You mentioned name players before, Jay, and obviously one of the ones who's in the hearts of a lot of Americans is Dennis. You obviously are good friends with Dennis and have been for many years. Talk to me about how he's doing these days, and if you had a chance to connect with them since you've been out there.
Well, I haven't, but I'm going to see him soon. We've been here a week and a half, and we've been doing a major remodeling on our house, so we've been busy with that every day. But he knows I'm coming, and the truth is, Dennis has been playing a lot of pool.
Right.
He's been playing a lot of challenge matches. He's traveled to Japan on a 2-week tour over there. So even though he can't come to the United States, he can play all over Asia. This Asian 9-ball tour is made to order for him. So he'll be playing all these events. And he's 44, 45 years old. I think he just turned 45. He's still at the peak of his game.
He seems to be in better spirits from what I've seen online, Jay, than maybe let's say like a year ago.
Well, a year ago, we were still fighting hard. We were fighting hard to get that 5-year ban reversed, and we were unsuccessful. So he still has 3.5 years before he
Right.
can return to the United States. But his visa is good for any other country.
Yeah.
He could go to Europe and play if he wanted to, but as he told me, he said it's too expensive to travel to Europe for one event.
Right. It's got to be worth his while.
Right.
There's been rumblings of, a potential Asian team meeting up with the winner of the Mosconi Cup, Jay. You obviously know a lot of top Asian players. How tough would that team of five from Asia be against the top five Europeans?
Too strong. If you limit it to the Philippines, it's a
It still may be
toss-up.
too
But
strong.
if you put all the Chinese, the top two or three Chinese with the top two or three Filipinos, they're the favorites. But the interesting thing, Mike, is I would prefer an all Filipino team. I don't know if you've ever seen the history of Filipino teams. They always win. They
They do.
work so well together. They're so cohesive and they're so supportive of each other. They just make a great team. You give me five top Filipinos, and I would put them up against the world.
Say that again, Jay. Say that again. Let me hear that again.
I would put five top Filipinos against a world elite team. And to me, that's even money.
That I love that, man. This is why I wanted to get you on, man. Because you
Now I
just
know. Now I know. I get a lot of listen. I get a lot of hate mail in the United States. I love the United States. I love being an American. But this is the reality. It wasn't that way 25 years ago. The American
right,
players were the dominant players.
right.
Okay, and we have Shane Van Boening and Skylar Woodward. But after those two, we don't really. There's nobody else from the U.S. that could stand up to this level of competition. As far there's guys that are good enough to win matches. Don't get me wrong. Shane Wolford and Tyler Steyer, they can compete in a field like this. But would I give them a chance to win here or even finish in the top 8? I don't think so.
I'm with you, and I don't think it's being disrespectful, saying that either. I feel like it's very it's. I think that's being completely fair. You know.
Well, I want to add to that though. Thanks to guys like Raw Hanna with his junior tour that's been junior international tour that's been going so strong for a few years now. We are seeing more development of junior players in the United States than I've seen in many, many years. And some of these young kids that are 17 or 18 are going to be great players when they're in their 20s. So I look for a resurgence and of course, now there's more incentive for young players because they see that there's more big tournaments where there's more money to be won, and that will make a difference. And
Well,
anyway,
I'm out here at junior nationals, and I was looking at the big banner that we had made, or that Shane Tyree had made, and on that flyer, I'm sorry, on that banner rather, I see a Jay Helfert logo on there. So you're actually
yeah.
supporting this event, and I had no idea. So talk to me about how important it is to give back to the youth here in the States, Jay.
Well, I support pool in the United States. Um, I don't have a big company or anything like that. I'm just an individual. But I made a good living from pool all my life, owning pool rooms and sports bars and producing events and stuff like that. So, in any way I can, I give back. And I particularly focus on giving back to the juniors because I want to see, I come from my generation had Mike Siegel and Jim Rimpey and Alan Hopkins and Nick Varner and many great players, Kim Davenport. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but we were the dominant players on the planet. And then along came the Filipinos, Jose Perica, and then Efren, and so on and so on. But we still remained the dominant players on the planet until probably the late 90s. Only like 25 years ago is when the Europeans and all the other Asians, including the Chinese and more Filipinos, overtook us. That's what happened.
When I was looking at that banner, Shane goes Toupee J, and I've been hearing that name for a long time, and I want to get some history on that nickname, Jay. How did Toupee J come about?
It was an accident. I was prematurely balding. And listen, I was only really highly active as a pool player from probably the age to 18 till maybe my early 30s. So I had about a 15. Don't get me wrong. I played and gambled after that, but when I was really playing on a regular basis all the time was about a 15-year period. And by my early 20s, I was balding. And uh, I was like a lot of guys. I was embarrassed that I was losing my hair. I had a bald spot on top, all that kind of stuff. Now, I had already played a lot of pool at a lot of places by the time I'm 23 or 24.
They knew you.
They knew me. But
Right.
the interesting thing is, when I got a toupee and put it on my head and shaved my mustache, because I always had a handlebar mustache, I shaved my mustache, I put that toupee on, and I went back to places where I had gambled like a couple years before and played the same guys
They didn't
who I
recognize
had
you.
played. And some of them said, you look kind of familiar. And I said, no, I've never been in here before. And I played the same guys and beat them again. And then finally, one guy from Arizona, he recognized me. Sean Walsh. They used to call him Arizona Slim. I come walking in a pool room, and he yells out, "Watch out! Here comes Toupee J!" And everybody looks around, and that name stuck.
Ever
That
since.
name stuck from then on,
I
and I just
love
had to live with it.
I
But
love the
listen,
originality.
after I did sneak up on a few guys, I'll be honest with you, not deliberately. It happened accidentally, but I went along with the gag, if you know what I mean, and won a little money that way. Probably after a couple of years, they all knew who I was again.
I posted some questions, some of our Patreons, and one of them was from Mike Panozzo. I'm sure you know Mike and of Birds Digest. And Mike said, "Ask him about Pockets. Ask him about the nickname Pockets." So let's hear that story, Jay.
Oh my God, that goes back. Thank you, Mike. Mike. By the way, Mike Pinoza is such an asset to
He
our
is.
sport. He's
Agreed.
been with Billiards Digest forever, and um, I say he's deserving a place in the Hall of Fame, and I hope he gets it someday. Anyway, Pockets.
$1,000,000% with you.
People that I knew in Los Angeles put out a publication called the National Tavern News. And at their brink of their popularity, they hired me to be an editor because they knew I could write. So they had writers sending stories in, and I would edit them. And I would always do a couple featured stories in every issue. Okay. And they got to where they had a circulation of about 30,000 bars all over the country. Just a second.
Sure.
Lenny, hang on.
Yeah, no worries. We got Jay Helfert here, obviously the legend, and we're super excited to have him on. This was something that we've been trying to get together now uh, for at least a week now, and we had some technical difficulties starting off with, but boy, am I glad to get Jay on. His energy is so positive, and he's full of just obviously some stories and just so well known and respected within the industry all over the world. And there couldn't be a better guest to have on. We appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Junior Nationals, the opening ceremony starts tomorrow. There you are, Jay.
Yeah. What was I saying now? What were we talking about?
About Pockets, the nickname Pockets.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So the National Tavern News got big. They started out in Southern California, and they spread pretty much to all pool-related taverns, taverns with bar tables. And you and I both know that's almost every bar.
Everywhere, yeah.
And we were in all of them through the whole Southwest and probably going up the West Coast too. And somebody, I wish I remembered the name of the artist. It was somebody relating to the Pierce family, who were the publishers. Bill Pierce was the publisher, was a cartoonist. And he started a cartoon. He would do a little cartoon strip like you see in the Sunday comics about a pool player called Pockets. And pretty soon, Pockets became Jay Helfert.
Is that
And
right?
Jay Helfert became Pockets. And people start, for whatever reason, I guess it's because they put a hat on him and he was bald. Okay? And people said, that's Jay Helfert. And a few people, including Mike Pinoza, started calling me Pockets. And it just, there are people today like Mike. All these years later, 30 some years later, they still say hi Pockets. Of course, a lot of old time pool players, a lot of the guys my generation, when they see me, they say hi Toupee.
That's how they've known you, man, for so many years. I love these stories, Jay. This is so
Yeah.
awesome. Uh,
I got a
tell,
couple nicknames.
tell me somewhere at one of your homes you got one of those clips of the cartoon. that we can post on social media at some point?
You know what? I think I can. I think I have some copies of the National Tavern News. I got to dig them out. But now that you ask me, next time I go into my storage, I'm going to find some.
Please do, man. We would love to see him.
Okay.
Let's shift back and let's get you out of here on this. Let's talk more sharks. Let's talk more nine ball. Give me some of the names that you think are going to go and go deep in this event. Give me a couple guys who are going to go top 8, maybe even a semifinal.
Well, because of the structure of this event, like I said, you're going to see upsets. The first goal of all these players is to make it through to the knockout stage. And let's say the knockout stage is 64 players. There won't be any weak players in that 64.
Right.
And I don't care who you are. You can be Gorst, you can be Ko Pin Yi, Ko Pin Chun. You can be Dennis Orculio, and you're in danger of losing right then. So, but yeah, I mean, you got Gorst playing, you got Oi from Japan, you got the top Filipinos, Dennis and Carlo and Lee Van, the very best Filipino players, right. Johan and James. And listen, there's 3 or 4 Australian players that people don't know. Stuart Petman. You probably don't know that name, but if you look up Stuart Petman, this is a guy that's gone deep in world straight pool tournaments. And I think at one tournament, he came to a 9-ball tournament, 5 or 6. Oh, he came to Derby City and made it to like the final 16 in the 9-ball. And he ran racks on people. So there's, like I said, there are a lot of players here who are not well known to us in the U.S., but are definitely capable of winning matches here. Yes, I like the top players. If they get to the knockout stage, if they don't have any hiccups along the way and they get to the knockout stage, sure, some of those guys are going to be there in the final 8 and maybe final 4. But there will be players there that you're not familiar with. They're going to be right in the running too. We can look back on this conversation 3 or 4 days from now, and you'll see what I mean.
I don't think you're going out on a limb. Maybe to the average pool fan, they may think, Jay might have lost a little bit, but you're telling facts here, Jay. I'm a firm believer in what you're saying, and I'm with you 1,000,000%, because they don't realize just the depth of the talent there. And, stack this tournament up.
They don't realize the depth of the talent in the Philippines. The Philippine pool is there are probably at least 200 to 300 solid A players, guys who are capable of winning anywhere else in the world in the Philippines. And almost all the good ones are here in this event. Don't get me wrong. The top name players, certainly, some of them will do well, and maybe 1 or 2 of them will be in the finals. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're not. Let's just say that.
Stack this tournament up, Jay, from top to bottom. Has there been a tournament in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years that from spot number 1 to spot number 128 that is as deep as the Filipino Sharks Open right now?
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you something. Compare it with the 128 players in the U.S. Open. Compare it with the 128 players in the International Open. And I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you this is a stronger and deeper field. There's no weak links here. Now, there are a few women players, but they're the best Filipinos. Rubelin Amit, Cheska Satano.
World champions. These are women about world champions. Yeah.
Yeah, they're women champions that have won world championships. And can compete with the Chinese women. And I think there's a couple of the Chinese women playing in this tournament as well. But it's not like a U.S. Open or an International Open where any shortstop can put up $500 and get in the field. The shortstops here are players, if you know what I mean, if you get my drift.
You got 128 players competing for over $100,000 US, big time money anywhere, big time money in the Philippines. Jay, when can fans expect to hear some of your commentary coming up in this event?
Well, I'll be starting the 4th day. So here it's Thursday. I think in the U.S. it'll be Wednesday. I'm going to work the fourth, fifth, and sixth day, the last 3 days, which I believe is the all knockout stage events.
You got fans all over the world excited to see the event. You got fans all over the world that are excited to hear your commentary, hear your stories. We appreciate you for coming on, Jay. I'm gonna ask something though. After the event, can you come back and let's recap the event? Let's tell more stories. Let's talk more Filipino pool, and let's see how these
Sure.
predictions came out.
Absolutely. Mike, I'm always ready to talk about pool. And I want you to know something. I'm excited about this event. I've been to a couple of Manny Pacquiao's tournaments, and they gave away maybe $50,000 to $60,000, and they did doubles and they did singles. So they split up the money between doubles and singles. But they were good, but they were no comparison to this. This is the biggest event I've seen in the Philippines since we did the World 10 Ball like 10 years ago, 2013.
What's the website, Jay? Where can fans check it out at? Sure.
Sharksbilliardleague.com.
Well, we will post that on Windows Open. You can also visit, is it jhelfert.com? Is that the website, Jay? How can they buy some books from me? Because I got all your books in the
Oh
house
yeah,
and I love them.
I got a website. I sell books and a few other things, some DVDs and other stuff.
What's the website, Jay?
It's my name, jhelfert.com.
Go check it out. As a matter of fact, if you guys comment on this post, I'll give away 2 copies of Jay's book myself, and we'll send it to you. So just pick a winner. If you pick the winner, even if you pick the guy who goes deepest, I don't care. Comment on this video. Whoever goes deeper, I'll send you copies of 2 of Jay's books. Jay, I
I
appreciate you
want to
coming
add
on.
something, Mike.
Yeah.
Now, Pool Wars and more Pool Wars are both available as ebooks on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Smashwords. On those various websites where they have ebooks, they're both on there. So some people that like an ebook, they can find them on there.
jhelfert.com. Jay, I'm a big fan. I got a lot of respect. I'm just in awe. I appreciate you coming on. You're a legend, and I can't wait to hear you in a couple days, buddy.
Hey, Mike, listen, right back at you, buddy. I got a lot of respect for what you do.
It's much appreciated. Jay Helfert, everyone. We will see you guys soon. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and go check out the stream.